Hi, everyone. I'm Jonathan. I'm a Mickaboo volunteer. In fact, all the people presenting today are Mickaboo volunteers. Mickaboo is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to education and the rescue and adoption of companion birds. We're a virtual organization with no paid staff and no physical location, caring for more than 450 birds spread across more than 100 foster homes. We rely on donations to be able to serve the birds. And due to the very poor state that many birds arrive in, our veterinary bills average $50,000 a month. That wasn't a misprint or whatever the voice equivalent is. $50,000 monthly for essential vet care. These costs are so high because often newly rescued birds require medical attention after years of neglect, failing health, accidents from escape, or injury from other pets or animals. So if you're able to help, please consider donating. And if you're looking to adopt a forever bird friend, you're in the right place. Okay, end of infomercial. Let's talk a little bit about the adoption and foster process, and we'll go into it in more detail in a moment. The main thing I want to say is that since we're an all-volunteer organization, and because we want to be really careful about the well-being of the birds and the happiness of the families they go to, the process can take a while. It's not like you go to the shelter, pick out a dog, go home with the dog. It takes several weeks to get through the process because it is multi-stage, as we want to get to know you and your situation, review what we learn carefully, and help you make an educated decision about what kind of bird is right for you. It can take 8 to 10 weeks, sometimes longer for a bigger bird, but please be patient because the results are really worth it. And if you feel like you haven't heard from us, please do ping us. Sometimes things accidentally drop and the reminders are helpful. We're hoping that one of the birds we'll be showing today is going to be the perfect fit for you. I'll be introducing you to them one at a time, but as we go along, don't hesitate to ask any questions you might have, either through the Q&A tab in Zoom or by commenting on the live stream if you're on Facebook. Today, we'll be meeting some of our Mickaboo birds who are seeking forever homes. In order today, we're going to meet Tobi the Amazon with Sophia, the green-cheeked conure Candy with Sarah, Amy with Millie the canary-winged parakeet, and then Sunny and, Scoville and Maggie, the Cockatiels, and then Zippy, another Amazon. We'll introduce a bird and their foster so you can learn more about them. And as we do that, first up is Tobi. And I want to run our viewers through Mickaboo's adoption process as we get Tobi on the screen. If you haven't already been approved to foster or adopt, let me tell you where you will start. There's Tobi, beautiful, beautiful double yellow Amazon. Hi, Sophia.
Hi.
We'll start talking in a moment, but I want to go through the adoption process for our viewers. Now, if you've already adopted or fostered for Mickaboo and are already approved, then you can skip ahead, but I'll be talking anyway. So the first step is to attend our basic bird class. Birds are very complex creatures with needs that are completely different from a dog or cat. They have their own body language, their own physical needs, even their own vets. We cover all of this in our basic bird care class, which is free and held online every 2 to 3 weeks over Zoom. And a lot of people take that class even when they're not looking to adopt, just because they want to improve the care that they give to their birds. Highly recommended. After you take the class, you'll fill out an application on our website, mickaboo.org, and then you'll be matched with a phone screener. The phone conversation will take about an hour, and that's going to help us better understand what you're looking for in a bird and your knowledge of birds and bird care. It's a great chance for you to ask any questions you might have after the class. Sophia, have you done any phone screens? I know a lot of our volunteers do.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, they're really a nice give and take, aren't they? In terms of, getting to know the adopter and their situation and their ability to ask you questions.
Yeah, you meet a lot of nice people that have the same interests that you have. So it is very interesting to do and fun.
That's That's actually a really good point, is that Mickaboo has got a really nice community that as you move into, you wind up, if you want, becoming part of. Pretty amazing. So the phone screen will take about an hour, and we'll ask a number of questions about bird care, which you would have learned in the class, and about your setup and situation. After the phone screen, the next step is a home visit. And this can be done in person, where a Mickaboo volunteer will come to you, or sometimes it's done online via Zoom or other collab software. Regardless of how it's done, the purpose is the same. It's a way for us to help you identify potential dangers in your home, help you find a good place for the cage, and get to know whoever will be caring for the bird. We'll want to see any birds you currently own, any cages you might have, and the parts of the house where the bird will be. We won't need to see bedrooms or not the places the bird won't be. And this isn't a white glove test. We don't mind a bit of mess. And we don't need to see places that the bird won't be. That's step 4. Once the home visit is over, the entire package is sent off to our approvals board for review. And once you're approved, the coordinator for your first choice species will reach out to chat with you and let you know you're approved and start working with you to find a good match. The word species is important here. Different parrots are not just different breeds, they're different species, and there's a huge difference between them, even birds of similar size. An Amazon and an African gray are similar sized birds, but they're very, very different. So you'll be speaking with a species coordinator to help you both understand what species would be a good match for you and a bird that'll be a good match for you. And then you get the fun part, which is meeting the birds and finding the one that's best for you. Okay, now, Sophia, back to you and Tobi. And I want to remind viewers that they can ask questions about Tobi in the Q&A, or if possible, I will repeat the question here. So how old is Tobi? Tell us a little bit about him.
So Tobi is a female. She's been tested and she is a female, and she is 19 years old. She lived with her previous owner for her whole life, pretty much, since she was 4 months old. And so we know her exact hatch date, which was July 9th, 2004.
Wow. So 19, that's not very old for an Amazon. That's really prime of life, because they can live to be 70 or 80 years old with good care.
Yeah, I consider her to be a young Amazon. She's one of the youngest Amazons that I've had in my house.
Yeah. And so she was with one person, and I think that person was unable to care for her. Is that right?
Actually, she's an older woman, and she was finding it very difficult to get to an avian vet. She lives out in a rural location, and quite far away from any avian vets. And she was very worried that if something would happen to her, she didn't know, she wanted to make sure Tobi would be okay if something happened to her. And she really cares about Tobi. Obviously, this has been a very loved bird. Not one of our neglected birds for sure, but she's been a very loved bird.
So that woman's example is a really good one for us to be planning and thinking ahead for our bird as we become, sufficiently old that it's difficult for us to care for them. But that also means Tobi is probably grieving a long-term, deep relationship. So how is Tobi doing? Is she nervous? How does she interact with people?
Yeah, so Tobi, she's actually a really sweet bird. She's not an unpredictable bird. Of course, she bites. All birds bite, but you really have to push her. She definitely gives you warnings if she's going to bite you. She will first kind of push you away with her beak. So it's been she's only been with me for, I think, 2 months, or about 2 months. And it's been a huge for her. I mean, she's, fearful at first, and didn't want to come out to the cage for a few weeks. Would just stay in the cage. Slowly she started coming out, and she will step up for me, but normally not from the cage. But if she, flies down, then she will step up for me. At the vet, she'll step up for me, and
Right.
She definitely will let me pet her head. She loves head scritches, and I mean, she'll let me get really in there and fix all her head feathers.
Oh,
So
that's great.
yeah, and she's a great talker. She talks. She's actually very quiet Amazon, especially for a double yellow. She's pretty quiet most of the time, except for when she talks, and she is a really good talker. She'll say, Tobi's a good girl, Tobi's a pretty bird, night, night, sweetie pie, and some other things. She's a really good talker.
That's great. And yeah, I noticed she's been sitting quietly this whole time.
Yeah,
because Amazons can be, Amazons can be pretty loud. Does she have periods of being loud at, morning wake up and bedtime?
Actually, she really doesn't. The only time that she's loud is if she's talking. She kind of has a loud voice when she's talking, but she doesn't really do any she doesn't do any screaming, or sometimes when my other birds start talking, she'll chime in and start talking too, which I think is really good for her. Very good. I want her to learn to be part of the flock. So I think it's really good when she starts chatting when they're chatting. Good social interaction for her.
Yeah, that sounds like it. Tell me about her diet. What does she eat?
So Tobi eats pellets. She eats rowdy bush pellets. And for treats, she likes almonds and walnuts, squash seeds. And she was eating a lot of dried fruit and vegetables in her previous home. And a lot of those are sugared. So I'm trying to transition her into fresh fruits and vegetables. She's been a little resistant. She will try, but she definitely prefers dried fruits and vegetables.
Right. And yeah, sugared. Well, you'll get there. You'll get there, pretty girl. Do we know about her with children or other pets, other animals? We know she's adapting to having birds around, which is good.
She is. She's sort of afraid of the other birds, but she's good around other birds. I mean, she's not cage aggressive. I have one Amazon who's quite social, and she really wants to meet Tobi. Tobi's really afraid of her and just kind of steps back from her, but it's not like she tries to attack her or anything. I think she's more fearful than anything. And she has lived in a home. Her previous owner bred German Shepherds, so she's used to being around dogs.
Got it. That's great to know. So we don't know about children, but she's good around dogs.
Yeah, and so as far as children go, I mean, at one time she was probably around the woman's grandchildren, but at this time in her life, she just doesn't have a lot of visitors. So for Tobi just to be around another person was a really big deal, because she pretty much just lived in the home with her owner, not a lot of visitors. It's funny, she was used to the weekly house cleaner that came. So I noticed that when I start vacuuming, she'll start chatting and get all happy, which is really funny. She thinks that she's living with the house cleaner now, I think.
That's funny. Oh, it's very sweet. Let's talk a little about her housing requirements. How big a cage should an Amazon like Tobi have? Or how big a cage is she in if it's a good sized cage?
I think she should be in about a 36-inch wide cage, I would say.
Okay, so 36 by 24 with bar spacing 3/4 to an inch.
Yeah,
we're talking about this because it's really, the parrots will spend a lot of time in their cage, and they should have as much space as we can give them. And the bar spacing is important because it's really a safety issue. If the bars are big enough for a bird to get their head through, they might not realize how to get it out again. If they panic, then they can really badly injure themselves. So, and that looks like a great cage for Tobi. Does Tobi fly?
Yes, Tobi can fly. And in previous years, the owner would encourage her to fly all around the house. So she can even make the turn down the hall to go to the master bedroom in the past. But before Mickaboo took her in the previous few years, she had pretty much been in the cage and cage bound. So she has not been used to flying, but she can definitely fly. And there are some safety concerns definitely with that.
Right. Yeah. Flight, it certainly increases the risk of getting out. And on the other hand, it's really, really good for their health and exercise and well-being. So it's tough to balance.
Yes, it's a balancing act, definitely. But it is really good for her health. And if she was in the past, she probably was a really good flyer because she was used to it. But now it's just like us. If I stop working out for a few years, it's going to be really hard when I get back trying to run again or something. So she's really not in her prime of flying now, but she can fly.
So tell us a little bit about life with Tobi.
Oh, and so Tobi, one thing about Tobi is she did start, when we picked her up, she was wearing a collar because one reason that she was in the cage all the time is because she had started picking at her feet until they bled. And so she was having to wear a collar so she couldn't pick at her feet. And we took her, Mickaboo, she was, went to the vet. She had all the tests done, x-rays. There's nothing physically wrong with Tobi. They call, when Amazons pick like that, it's a syndrome. They don't really know why they do it. But I've had times here when she's not picking at all. And then times when she'll pick a little bit again. And so I did take her back for a check at the avian vet again. And she doesn't really need a collar. Her picking has been very superficial at this point. So it's not a life-threatening thing. Got it.
And do you associate it with anything? Has it been when she's been left alone longer, or we just don't know?
I cannot figure it out, and I really am trying. I've tried moving her around to different areas. I've tried putting her in a sleeping room at night. I've tried different things, and I really haven't been able to pinpoint it yet. But I've only had her for like 2 months, so I'm still working with her.
All right. Let's review the adoption steps one more time with the slide on screen, please, Sarah. So everything is nice and clear. The first step is to take the basic bird class. Once you've done that, you can complete your application online. Then you'll have a phone screen. After that, we'll schedule a home visit and we'll get that. And then you are sent to the approvals board. And once you're approved, you can be matched with a bird. That's it. So in our last minutes, Sophia, anything else you'd like to say or have potential adopters be aware of with Tobi? Besides what a sweet and wonderful bird she is?
Yeah, one thing really wonderful that I thought that was fun, that I never see a baby bird. I always get them when they're older since I do rescue. So when I got all the documents from the owner, she gave me a folder full of all her medical stuff. And it had a picture of her, and she looks more like a yellow crowned Amazon in that picture. She only has the yellow right above her beak. And so I guess with the double yellows, they get yellower as they age. So until they're sexually mature, they keep getting more and more yellow. So probably until they're like 5 or 6 years old. So I thought that was really interesting.
That's neat. Yeah. One thing about parrots is that they continue to teach us pretty much forever. All right. Thank you so much, Sophie.
Thank you.
And if I've been calling you Sophie instead of Sophia, I apologize.
Oh, that's fine.
Sarah, let's go to you and Candy, the green cheek conure. I keep wanting to call her Cotton Candy. Conure Cotton Candy.
Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you. I'll remind our viewers, you can ask questions about Candy or about green cheek conures more generally in the Q&A or in Facebook in the comment. Hey, there's Candy. I want Candy. Wow, she's really she's bopping.
Oh, she's the queen of the bop. She's got all the moves. She doesn't stop.
How old is she?
She's 8 years old. So by conure standards, that's pretty young.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a riot. Does she have any special care needs?
No. But I think she would benefit from someone who is careful with handling her. We'll talk a bit more about this as we're chatting here, but she can get very chompy under certain circumstances. So I think it's really important to read her body language and to work with her. You know, we can recommend good practices to minimize the chomping factor. And I think over time, I think she loves people, and we're working it out of her. So I'm very optimistic that she's going to make a great bird for somebody, but I think it's not a health issue. It's just more behavior and something that with a bit of experience and preparation and training, we'll be able to completely solve, won't we? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I think I have a feeling just watching her body language that that's something that she'll be able to work with.
Yeah.
How did she come to Mickaboo?
She came to Mickaboo when her owner reached out. It was a person who'd had her for 5 years as the second home, and they were going to be doing a big move out of state, and they were kind enough to give us a lot of warning. So they had some time before they were moving. And we just worked on finding a foster home that would be a good fit. And so we picked her up just right before the owner was going to be moving. So it was really just a situational thing where the owner was moving and couldn't keep her on the big move they were making across the US.
It certainly looks like she will step up and is comfortable being on a person so long as the person is dancing. Do we know if she's good with dogs and cats?
We do not. I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think we have that information. I don't have any dogs and cats here, so yeah, I don't think we have. I think it's possible that the last foster home has a small dog, but they only had her for just a few days. So yeah, we don't have a lot of info about that.
And I would say that the question that's equally or more important about parrots and dogs and cats is, are the dogs and cats okay with birds, and will they all be well supervised? Because
Indeed.
Dogs and cats and birds can go south in less than a second.
Yeah, and she's very high energy. She can fly, and I would not have her out in a room where there is a dog or a cat. Even if you're there to supervise, reality is that dogs and cats and birds can move a lot faster than humans can. So even if you're in the room, it would be very hard for you to physically intervene. Oh, look, see, demonstration. He just flew on top of my monitor screen. Did you get spooked? Was that something out the window? What did you see? I think there was a crow or something out the window.
What's her diet like?
Good, really good diet. She really likes Harrison's fine pellets. So she came to us on those and we just kept her on them. We give her fresh veggies and fruits as well every day. So she's really good at eating her veggies. She particularly likes carrots and bell peppers and beetroot. And her favorite fruit is slices of orange. So we've just been maintaining that really. It's kind of nice not to have to do a lot of diet work. Yeah.
That's really great. Are you sure? She looks like she's a kayak in a Conure costume. She's just so bouncy. I think she's just dressed up as a Conure for Halloween. No, I'm kidding.
She's
is really a Conure.
And she's getting chumpy now. So this is the point in the interview where you get to see the chumpy part. So she's got a real thing about hands.
And that's why your hands are covered.
That's why I'm covering my hands. So she's not going for my face. She's not bitey like she wants to hurt me. She's just really overexcited about hands. So, but ironically, she loves head scritches. So she really calms down. See if I can turn around a little bit. She really loves scritches, and she stopped getting so hyper, and she'll really chill out for a moment if you can get your finger in and do some head scritches.
Nice.
And she'll kind of have a moment again, and then you've got to just cover up your hands and work past the hyper candy moment. It's funny that her candy, it's almost like she's had too much sugar.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
Yes, candy. High sugar content. What kind of person do you think would make a good home, a good partner for Candy?
I think maybe someone that's had a Conure before and understands the importance of consistency, developing a routine, maybe doing some clicker training or target training with her. Knows not to overreact or do, punishment if she does get bitey. There's no such thing as an aggressive Conure or an aggressive bird. There's really just hormonal or stimulated or fearful. So, this is something we can work with her. I have not had her very long. I think with some work, this is something we can train out of her. When she does bite me, I will just pick her up in a flannel and I'll put her, oh, she's gone down. Come here. I will just pick her up and put her away in her cage, and she doesn't get punished, but she doesn't get my attention anymore. So
Right.
I think if you do that consistently, she's learning it's not a good behavior. And yeah, I wouldn't recommend her to a home with children or, you know, anyone who's newer to birds and might be a little intimidated by her high energy and the jumpiness.
Right.
There's different levels of bite, and her first bite is kind of funny. Like, you get a beak-shaped imprint in your skin. She's not drawing buckets of blood or anything. It's not very pleasant, but she's also not going to, you know, take a finger off. So, you know, it's just a case of working with that. So I think someone that's maybe had a conure before would be ideal. Otherwise, you might find it a little intimidating. Yeah, she's nipped me.
So besides being on people and being excited and bopping around and dancing, what does Candy like to do?
She really loves palm shredder toys. She's got a number of toys in her cage. She likes balsa. And she does actually talk. I don't know. I mean, you might have heard her make a few like squeaky, voicey noises between her cheeks. And she does have a little talking voice. And I haven't quite made out the words, but sometimes first thing in the morning in her cage, she has little sentences she says, and I haven't quite worked them out yet. But I think she's a talker as well. We just have to kind of figure out exactly what you're saying, huh? You've got some secrets to tell. I just don't know what they are.
Any funny stories about, I know she hasn't been with you for a long time.
Well, the first foster home that took her on Mickaboo only had her for 3 days before they waved the white flag and said, this bird's very chompy and we're not succeeding. So could we figure out another setup? And that was actually what helped me figure out how to succeed with her. So from the get-go, I switched up her cage setup so that her cage, all her food dishes are, they're set up using the food doors of the cage. I never put my hands inside her cage. And when I let her out, I let her fly to me, and I don't try to pick her up on her cage. So I think, you know, if you did try to put your hands inside her cage, I think then there might be a bloodshed incident. Yes. So I think there's some tips and tricks to succeed with Candy. And thanks to the first foster homes experiences, we've been able to figure some of those out. Yes, we have.
Someone with conure experience and someone, you know, our coordinators, species coordinators will also be happy to help and provide pro tips. So in our last few minutes, what else would you like to share with potential adopters? We've talked a lot about her excitement and chompiness.
Yeah, I mean, she's fully flighted, and I think it's really nice for her to be able to fly. I would really recommend, you know, keeping her in a room where she can safely do that. She enjoys it, and the more she can do it, I think probably the better you'll be able to succeed with her.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you, Candy.
Thanks, Jonathan.
And now we're going to go over to Amy and Millie, the canary-winged parakeet. We need someone to swap the video. There we go. We're cooking with gas, as my grandmother used to say. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Jonathan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So this is Millie.
This is Millie,
the canary-winged parakeet. Now, before we start, once again, I want to remind people they can ask questions about Millie or the other birds in the Q&A or through commenting on Facebook. So, hi, Millie. Hi, Amy. So we don't see many canary-winged parakeets. How big is she? And tell us a little about this species.
Okay. She's probably about 8 inches from beak to tail, 8 or 9 inches. And
so bigger than a budgie, smaller than a conure? Is that kind of?
Yes, that would be a good description. A bit bigger than a budgie, but not as big as the conure that Sarah was just showing us. She's a beautiful little bird. The species is much more unusual in terms of the birds that are available at Mickaboo and in this area. She's the only one we have at the moment. They're from the Amazon basin in South America, kind of the whole length of the Amazon from the eastern edge of Colombia down to where the Amazon meets the Atlantic Ocean. And they live in small flocks. They're very intelligent. They're in the wild, they're a sociable bird, and they hang out together. They're very smart. I have had 2 foster canary wing parakeets, and they have both just amazed me with their intelligence.
Can you give us an example of Millie's smarts?
Oh, in terms of canary wing parakeets in general, they're very attentive. They know when you're talking to them. They react. They know who their person is. They can have very definite opinions about things, and they're very good at manipulating small objects.
So I'm guessing Millie might like puzzles, for example.
She loves toys. I suspect she loves puzzles. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Do we know how old she is and where that fits in a canary wing lifespan?
We're not sure how old she is. She's at least several years old, and they can live up to 10 or 12 years, I believe, with good care in captivity. There are records of them having lived longer, but I would suspect probably 10 or 12 years would be a good average.
Got it. And how did she come to Mickaboo?
It's an interesting story. Unfortunately, Millie came from a kind of troubled background. She was originally, the first we know of her, she was in a cage with a number of other birds at a pet store on El Camino Real. And apparently from there, she was purchased by somebody who also purchased some other birds. And Millie was then placed in an outdoor cage with other birds, which was not a good situation for her. She did not get along with the other birds, and I'm sure it was a traumatizing experience for her. So the person who is fostering her now found out about Millie and actually purchased Millie and the cage and all the birds from the woman who had her, because they were not in a very good situation and they were not getting very good care. So she was rescued by her current foster mom and is in a much, much better situation now. She has her own cage, but she is still in a room with other birds or in a place with other birds where she can talk to them. And she seems to really enjoy communicating with the other birds, but she needs to have her own space. She's a bird that needs to have her own space. But she's really looking for a permanent forever kind of home.
Right. And her own space, other birds in the house, not a problem so long as she's not sharing space with them.
Right. Right.
You mentioned that they're South American birds.
Yes.
A lot of the South American birds tend to be loud, even if they're small. How are the canary wings on volume?
Well, I would have to say they're on the louder side.
Okay.
And mostly they are on the louder side when they want your attention. You know, they're an interactive bird. They want your attention, or they want a treat or something like that. But yes, they can be on the louder side. Probably not macaw loud, but on the louder side.
It's important for people to be aware of that. You know,
yes,
that's probably not a great apartment bird.
Probably
Does she talk?
Not. Yeah, I would say she's probably not a very good apartment bird.
Does she talk?
She doesn't say words. She sings.
Oh,
She enjoys singing, and her foster mom really enjoys listening to her sing. So,
how does she interact with people? Is she comfortable being, stepping up, or?
Well, given her background, she has a troubled background, and given that, she is not very comfortable around people. She will step up on a rope perch, but she is not not yet trusting enough to step up on a hand or fly to a shoulder or something like that. So she will step up on a rope perch. She does have a lot of out time during the day where she's out of the cage, as you see her now, and able to fly around the room where she's in and so on. And usually she'll just go back into her cage by herself when she's ready. But if not, she'll step up on a rope perch and go back into her cage that way. She one thing about her is she's not, when she's out in the room, she doesn't chew things up like a lot of birds would. She's not a chewer. She doesn't destroy objects in the room. She's not destructive. So that's very interesting.
A plus.
Yes, that's a plus. A lot of birds I know would love to get their little beaks on whatever they can, and destroy them, but just for the fun. But she's not that way.
She came from kind of a rough background in an outdoor aviary where it sounds like she didn't have great care. Does she have any health issues that an adopter should know about?
We're not aware of any health issues. No, she's on a good diet, and she seems healthy. She's, her feathers look good, her eyes are bright, and so on. One thing a new adopter might want to do, or once it becomes possible, would be to have her checked out by a vet. But as far as we know, there are no health issues.
Right, and it's always a good idea to get a new bird checked out by a vet.
Absolutely. And to establish a relationship with the veterinarian and the bird too. So I think it is a very good idea. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for mentioning that as well. What kind of housing requirements does a bird like Millie have, a canary wing parakeet?
At the moment, she's in a cage that is about one moment. Her cage is 4 feet by 4 feet by 3 feet. So she's in a pretty good sized cage with a lot of toys and things to climb on, which she enjoys. So I don't think it needs to be quite that large.
For her.
I'm sorry?
That's a nice size cage.
Yes, it is. It is. I don't know that it needs to be quite that large, but obviously the larger the cage you have for a bird, the better it is. And as you can see, she has lots of play space on top of the cage or near the cage where she can, looks like this is on top of the cage. She has a little play structure, if you will, that she can climb on and enjoys being on.
Yeah, I want one of those.
Yeah. It looks like fun.
Yeah. So in our last few minutes, what else would you want to share with potential adopters for Millie? It sounds like she's gonna need someone who needs some patience, but a lot of our birds come in with major trust issues because of bad situations, and it takes time, but it's amazing to watch them blossom. It's really a worthwhile thing. Right. Well, I think as you saw a moment ago, she was just sitting on one foot. Right now she's kind of chewing on one foot, but a moment ago she was just sitting on one foot, which is a sign that she's relaxed. So I think she's not an anxious bird. She's just not quite as well socialized to people, given her background and her experiences over the last few years, although she is in a very good foster home right now. She's on a pretty good diet. She likes nutriberries and avocakes. She likes mango and strawberries. Some of her favorite treats would be walnuts and pecans, that kind of thing. So she's a good eater. We don't know for sure if she's a male or female. She's been given a traditionally female name, and we call her, but in order to determine if she's really male or female, there would need to be a DNA test, because canary wings are not, they look the same on the outside, whether they're male or female. Right. So we don't know for sure that she's a female. I think she'd probably do best at a home where she'd have her own cage, of course, and have plenty of out time because she's used to that. And with somebody who has some experience with birds and is willing to work with a bird who's a little bit fearful. I think that would probably be the best. Probably not a good bird for a house with small children. She can get nippy, when she's afraid of something. And so that would not be a good situation with little children around. She is fully flighted and she enjoys flying. She looks great.
I think she'd be a lovely bird for somebody who wanted a bird who sings nicely and enjoys being out and being sociable with other birds. If they have other birds in the room or in the house that she could talk to, that would be terrific.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing her. And hopefully there's someone watching saying, wow, what a neat bird, because she sure is.
She is. She's a very unique, lovely little bird. I hope somebody falls in love with her.
Yeah, I think they will. All right, we're going to do some, and now for something completely different, we're going to have a pre-recorded interview with a pair of cockatiels, Scoville and Maggie. So let's get that up.
These are Scoville and Maggie. Scoville came to Mickaboo from, Scoville is on the Boing in the center of the frame. She came to Mickaboo from Santa Cruz, where someone found her outside and she had pretty extensive injuries. She had a broken wing and puncture wounds, and her eyes were swollen because they think that she had a head injury. But she spent a lot of time at the vet and is doing much, much better now. Her feathers have grown back. She only had one tail feather when she came to Mickaboo, but now she's quite happy and has grown all her feathers back. She loves playing with toys, and her favorite place to sit is on that Boing. She just loves going up and down it. And then Maggie has been with Mickaboo for a while, and she was with a male mate for a while, but started laying eggs very frequently, too frequent. Here's Maggie. Oh, and Scoville is a little bit protective of her Boing sometimes. Maggie was laying eggs too frequently for her health. It can cause them to have vitamin deficiencies and things. So we had to separate her from her male friend, and now we're trying her with a female friend, with Scoville, who is not being particularly friendly to her right now.
So you mentioned that both are females. One of them, as you mentioned, has been verified as such because of the egg laying. Has Scoville's, how was Scoville's gender verified?
She does not whistle at all. She does little squeaky noises occasionally, but no whistling. And then when she was at the vet, they noticed that she has yellow bars on the undersides of her wings, which usually indicate female.
Okay, so behavior as well as very subtle coloration.
Mm-hmm.
How old do we think these birds are?
Maggie is about 10 to 15 years old, and Scoville, we don't know as well, but she's likely a bit younger than Maggie.
Okay, and for the benefit of our listeners, give us some context. How long is the life expectancy?
With good care, they can live up to 30 years. So Maggie is on the older side compared to Scoville, but she still could live quite a bit longer. And Scoville could have another 20 years of her life with good care.
Okay, so, I mean, and when you said Maggie was a little bit older, I mean, she's middle-aged, right?
Yes.
So it's not like she's, an elderly bird sort of pushing the boundaries of her time with us on this earth.
No.
Okay, and tell us about their interactions with people. Are they good with kids? Do we know?
I have not seen them interact with kids. They're not big on having hands near them. They like people to talk to them. They love being misted. They're always excited when they get fresh food in their cage. Mm-hmm. But they don't really want to step up.
Okay, so they regard other people as flock members, but they're not necessarily chummy with the other flock members.
Yes, they will just shuffle away when they see you coming near.
Fair enough. And what are we eating?
They both love toys. I took most of their toys out of the cage so that they would be the star of the show and not be too distracting visually. But their favorite, both of them, is balsa wood. They will just absolutely destroy blocks of balsa wood. Almost any type of toy they'll play with, and they just love to shred.
Okay, great. I'm glad that they're able to entertain themselves. What do they eat as a normal diet?
Their main food is fruity Zupreme, the rainbow colored pellets. And then I also have been adding Harrison's pellets into that, so they get a mixture of pellets. And then in the morning, I give them each a square or two of nutrient cake crushed up on top of their food. And then Maggie, I haven't seen eat as much romaine, but Scoville, you can see the whole romaine in the background. I don't know if she's shredding or eating or both the romaine, but she loves to at least play with the romaine.
Yeah, well, sometimes play is a preamble to ingesting, and that's all good when it comes to veggies.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like we have a pretty nice size cage here. What is their cage size?
I should have had that open. I believe it is a minimum of 30 inches, but
I see in our
you
notes
can-
here that we've got 36 wide, 24
Okay.
deep, and 24 high. Does that sound about right?
That does. Thank you for providing that. Yes, so they need a little bit of a bigger cage, especially because these two don't have much out time. Maggie, I haven't let out very much just because I can't have the door to the cage open. And she honestly hasn't seemed to want to come out much. Scoville has some unusual eye things. The bones around her eye socket are actually too large, so her eyes stick out a little bit farther than they should, and also she doesn't seem to be able to focus as well, so she has some vision impairment. She can still see, but she will fly straight into walls. It's not good, so it's not very safe for her to be out flying. She would love to, but she's just not good at it. So maybe if her wings were clipped, she might be able to have more out time, but currently she has a big cage and she's happy in it. So that's where she is.
Okay, and if she were to get out, she would need to be heavily supervised.
I
doesn't-
have
Yeah.
I've tried that. She flies well and she's very fast. She just really can't see where she's going. So it's not even a matter of supervision.
Okay.
It's more of a matter of time before she runs into something. Maybe if she was in some sort of soft enclosure, it could be okay, but I think unfortunately flying is just not very safe for her because of her eye. She's already scratched her one of her eyes pretty badly. She's bruised her. All of this was in one outing. She's bruised her beak, and it's just, especially with her previous injuries, to me, it's not really worth the risk of having her fly.
Okay, fair enough. All righty, so when we have an audience question, you mentioned that Maggie laid eggs previously. Has she laid any eggs since you've had her in foster care?
She's been with me for only a few weeks, and she did lay one egg the second day that I had her, but she hasn't laid any more since then. She did not sit on that egg. So we were hoping that the change of environment and the change of cage mates would help her with reducing the egg laying, and it currently does seem to be helping. I'm also good about covering her at the right time, which is supposed to help so that she gets a longer nighttime. So I don't know if she will start again. She definitely should not be around other male birds because that does seem to be a trigger for her. But she does seem to have reduced her egg laying currently, at least.
Okay. So in terms of what Mickaboo tends to call special needs, i.e. circumstances where the birds might need a little bit more attention. Sounds like Scoville's eyes need to be watched because of the situation that you described before, and you know, not flying because that's dangerous. And then Maggie's reproductive tendencies need to be watched because of the egg-laying danger for her. Is that it in terms of special needs?
Yeah, so they don't really they don't need medicine every day. They don't need anything particularly special. I do miss Scoville's eyes just because they can get debris stuck in them because they do protrude a little bit. But really just monitoring them and making sure they're in a safe environment is all that they really need.
Okay. So in the last couple minutes before we go to another foster parent, what fun stories do you have about this pair?
It's just fun to see how far Scoville has come. I picked her up originally from the vet when she only had the one tail feather and she was so unhappy. So even though she's not particularly interactive with people, it's just so nice to see that Mickaboo really does make a difference in these birds' lives, because she is now a very happy, very busy, chewing, eating, squawking when she wants to, flapping like I was talking about earlier. With she likes to hang from her boing upside down and flap her wings like a bat, which is entertaining. So it's exciting to see that they can come back even from really bad circumstances. And now hopefully she'll have a friend with Maggie. So both of them would be a very cute pair together.
Great. Okay, well, thank you for telling us about this beautiful pair of female cockatiels. Hopefully there's someone in the audience who will be falling in love with them and adopting them to provide that forever home.
All right, welcome back. Thank you, Pam, for interviewing and talking about Scoville and Maggie. And now we have Zippy, the Amazon. Hey, Sarah.
Hello.
You seem very familiar.
Yes, you do too.
Okay, so this is our second Amazon today. Tobi with a double yellow. What about Zippy?
Zippy is a blue front Amazon. You can see he's got a tiny little bit of blue just above his beak there, above his nares.
Ah, it's hard to see in this exposure, but yeah. And how old is Zippy?
Zippy's 39, so yeah, he's just about to turn 40 in the next 12 months. So that sounds pretty old for a parrot, but for Amazons, yeah, they can live to be 60, 70 or more with good diet and good care. So he's just kind of middle-aged.
Yeah. What does he like to do? He looks like he's having a good time on top of his house and has a couple toys up there.
Yeah, he likes chewing wood. So you can see he's been having a little go at that new toy that he's got up there. He's a pretty active guy, so he likes
head scritches, it looks like.
He does. He loves head scritches. So, you know, he'll come out and just hang out on his top of his cage, but if you're around, you really need to give him attention. I've discovered he does not like it if you're giving other people or birds attention and he's in the same room. He actually flew and landed on my head. I was talking to the other foster bird I have in the room, and Zippy was out, and that was how I learned Zippy can fly, because I wasn't looking and I didn't even hear anything. I just felt feet on my head out of the blue. And the next thing I knew, I had a Zippy on my head. So yeah, he likes to have your undivided attention when he's out. But yeah,
it sounds like it, and he may surprise you.
Yeah, full of surprises.
So he will fly over to you. Does he step up, and how does he interact with people?
He's pretty easy. He will step up on a rope perch. I didn't try handling him with my hands because I only had him for less than a month. We placed him with another foster home. I was picking him up to handle his intake, but I was already full, so he just kind of boarded with me until we placed him with a full foster home to take him on. So I only had him less than a month, and I like to get to know bigger birds before I start putting my exposed hands in front of them. So we were taking it slow, just hanging out, doing head scratches. And if I needed to move him, I was using a rope perch, but I think he would step up. I mean, he's been very friendly, and if he'd hung around much longer, I think we would have been there. I'm someone who prefers to go slow and just, never get the bad bite. That approach works for me. So, yeah. But he's been pretty easy, and I kind of miss him, actually. He was good fun to have around.
He's beautiful, and the coloration on the joint of his wing is pretty amazing.
Yeah, those Amazon primaries, they're beautiful.
Amazons, as we said earlier, can be one of the louder parrot species. What's being with Zippy like? And talk about being with Amazons in general, and then a little bit about Zippy.
Yeah, they can definitely have their moments. He does get loud when he's excited, so I would not recommend him as an apartment bird. I think you need to be in a single home where noise is going to be less of an issue. He will vocalize when he's had your attention, and then if you need to leave to go and do something else, he will start calling. I noticed that as a pattern when I had to finish hanging out with him and go and do other things. I would hear him for a while being more vocal. So he definitely likes to let you know that he would like your attention again. He has some pretty loud repetitive calls, which they're not particularly high or screechy, but they're just very persistent, like it's it's very repetitive and loud, so you would hear it from several rooms away easily. Right. He does talk as well. Mostly his talking is quieter and in a sort of old man voice, which is kind of interesting because he's got different personalities when he's vocalizing. So he's got a grumbly old man who talks first thing in the morning and at night, and then he's got this louder Amazon voice, which is like his outdoor voice that he uses when he can't see you and he wants your attention to come back. So yeah, he can be loud. I have quite a few other foster birds, and some of those are Amazons. When they vocalize, he will reply. So if you have an Amazon already, I can imagine them having a little Amazon party. And sort of the golden hour at dusk is when they really like to go for it. So that's also kind of dinner time. So dinner time, last hour before bed and sundown, that tends to be a good time to put on some noise canceling headphones.
Good coping mechanism suggestion.
Yeah.
How is Zippy's diet?
It's pretty good. He is on a mix of Harrison's pellets. I give him a little bit of Supreme Fruity and also Nutrient cakes. So I just pretty much give him a tablespoon of both types of pellets and then a couple of Nutrient cakes and then fresh veggies. He's a pretty good veggie eater, so his dinner is mostly his fresh food. And we put a few drops of fish oil on the pellets. So because of his age, Amazons are really prone to heart disease and atherosclerosis when they get older. And studies have shown that a little bit of fish oil on their food is a great preventative measure that can delay the onset of those issues. So we are doing that for him and a couple of other older Amazons that I have here. And they don't really notice because it's just a few drops on their food. So, even if they just ingest half of that, it's not medicine. It's more of just, dietary supplement to try and be preventative for future health problems.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know a number of other bird species are prone to that. in their later years too.
Yeah.
And if you have an older bird, it's worth talking to your avian vet about their heart condition and whether that kind of supplementing might be suggested. Do we know about Zippy? Well, how did Zippy come to Mickaboo?
Zippy has actually been with Mickaboo since 2008. He came in to us and was placed in a foster home, and then he was adopted in 2012, but it did not work out. The adopter only had him for a few months. Obviously that's a few years ago, so I don't have a lot of detail on why that didn't work out. I think it may have been just simply that that person was not an Amazon person and learned that through the adoption not working out for them. Then he was with our Amazon coordinator who fostered him for quite a few years until he got adopted in, I think it was 2018, by another adopter who was a longtime Mickaboo volunteer and loved her Amazons. Unfortunately, she passed away last month. So she had 3 Amazons at the time, and Mickaboo makes a lifelong commitment to our birds. So whether you're fostering or adopting, if anything isn't working out, no matter what point in the process you are or how long you've had the bird, it could be years down the line, we will always take them back. So we actually traveled out of state because the birds had moved with their home to Arizona, and we went out and picked up the birds and brought them back to Mickaboo. So Zippy came back with 2 of his other Amazon buddies, and now he's looking for his next forever home.
So it's important that he's also grieving right now.
Yeah, I would say he's transitioned really well. I think it helped that he was not the only bird. So he was, we did the road trip with the other 2 Amazons that he was used to having around as Abney and company, and he got to stay with them for a little bit.
Is he bonded with either of them or not so?
No, I mean, they would vocalize just in, flock behavior, but not bonded in any way. I think the hardest part for him was when we placed him in his long-term foster home. He actually didn't eat for a day because he's the only Amazon there, and the only other bird they have is a gray. And I think that was a harder transition for him, just not to have Amazons around anymore. But it only lasted a day, and he's been eating again and coming out of his cage and climbing down on the floor and walking around and exploring. So I think he's a pretty sociable bird with people. So I think he got over it pretty quickly once he realized he'd still get his head scritches and attention and lots of toys from his new home. So I think it's just an adjustment period.
Sarah, do we know about him with either children or other pets? We know about other birds, particularly other Amazons, but
I think he's been around small dogs in the past, but that's all that I can speak to. I would not recommend him with children just because Amazons can be harder to read and they can get pretty excited. And getting bitten by an Amazon is not fun. So I'd be very careful, even with older children, honestly, if they're not used to handling birds. I don't think Zippy would be a great ambassador bird to work with children. I think, right. that's something that, you really need an exceptionally easygoing bird for that. And most parrots as a prey species would find that a lot to deal with.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So in our last few minutes, what else would you want to share with potential adopters for Zippy?
Well, I mentioned that he talks. That was really my funny story. I should have saved that for the end. But yeah, I think he does have hyperkeratosis. You might have noticed in this video, his beak is kind of long and thick, and his nails are also exceptionally long. We did get them trimmed after this, so he got a nice pedicure before he moved. But that's kind of a throwback to his diet pre coming to Mickaboo. I think his diet was probably suboptimal before then, and that can lead to hyperkeratosis and just keeping his nails and his beak monitored. There's no need to do beak trims per se, but he does have a pretty unusual shaped beak. And keeping his nails groomed regularly would be a good idea for him, just so he's able to move around and be comfortable.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks
Yeah.
so much for sharing. He really seems like a neat guy.
He really is.
It's nice to see a pair of Amazons in the more than one Amazon in the adoption fair, and hopefully there's some loving Amazon homes who are looking to expand with a couple of wonderful birds. Thanks so much, Sarah.
Thank you.
And we're going to have to see about changing the spotlight so that I'm back on the screen, but the dulcet tones of my voice will still reach you even while we look at the Mickaboo Companion Bird Rescue symbol. I want to thank everyone for attending the October Virtual Adoption Fair. If you have any ideas or comments on how we can improve for next time, please include it in the exit survey, which you'll get a link to when you exit. Because your feedback is really helpful. We are always looking to improve. If you have any last questions, this is a good time to ask them, either in the Q&A section on Zoom or in the comments on Facebook. If you fell in love with one of these birds, please contact us. And there are a lot more birds who need to find their forever homes. So if no one here seemed like the right bird, please take a look at the others on our website, mickaboo.org. Please remember that we are fully donation-funded nonprofit, and you can support this work of parrot rescue at mickaboo.org/donate or at paypal.me/mickaboo. We'll be doing these events regularly. We're going to take a break for the holidays, and we'll do another one in January or February. Please check in about these and other events on the events page of our website. Again, that's mickaboo.org. The class schedule is also there for that basic bird class that I mentioned. I'd like to give a huge thank you to all of our foster parents and their birds for being brave enough to come on, and for all of the other volunteers who provided technical support and kept this event happening smoothly. Let's roll credits.